Everybody, it is DJ DiBiase. We're live here for another episode of No Request TV. Today we are sitting down, having a digital dialogue, digital conversation with DJ Jaycee out of Atlanta by way of Detroit, Michigan. We're going to be talking a lot about his career, his come up, some of the struggles, some of the victories that he's gone throughout his career. Once again, this whole interview is going to be available for replay on No Request TV YouTube page. Appreciate that, Dex. So go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page. Once this interview is done, we appreciate you joining us live. We're going to bring Jay in here in a minute. But if you have any questions for Jay, hit the comments. We're definitely going to cover all aspects and everything. E-Class, what up? Kerosene, what's going on? And definitely going to get things started. Let me go ahead and bring Jay up in here right now. But yeah, No Request TV, these interviews for this quarantine, I've actually really been enjoying it. It's definitely great to have a live dialogue where everybody can interact with each other and everything. So everybody that's been tuning in since day one, we appreciate y'all. DJ Jaycee is here live with us, brushing that mustache, making sure he's on point.
hey, man, this quarantine, I got more hair on my face than I've ever had.
Yeah, I've definitely been missing my barber during this whole thing. I broke down a couple weeks ago. I was like, you know what? I had to go through the back door and get seen about because I had the mustache growing over my lips and everything. I'm like, yeah, I need to get this taken care of and everything.
Yeah, I'm going through that right now.
So shout out to everybody that's tuned in right now. We're live with DJ Jaycee out of Atlanta by way of Detroit.
Yes, sir.
How you feeling today, Jay?
Oh, I'm good, man. I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm good, man. Definitely, getting adjusted to this whole quarantine deal, man. Like, it was kind of strange at first. I'm definitely not really a DJ that goes live or anything like that, but it's something that's been, really kind of therapeutic for me just to kind of, connect with the people that I haven't really been able to see or haven't seen or haven't met.
Yeah.
So we're definitely gonna get into the whole live DJ element and everything like that too as well. But we want to go through your whole career, starting from even prior to DJing. So back in those days, growing up in Detroit, childhood. I like to ask the DJs this on every single podcast, every single episode. Saturday morning, time to clean up the crib. Name 3 artists that your folks were playing in the crib on a Saturday morning.
Saturday morning, my mom was always either playing some Aretha or artists like Quincy Jones. The "You've Got It Bad Girl" album was a favorite. Was a staple around the crib. Isley Brothers, Gino Vanelli. Just a lot of different music was pumped in around the crib.
How's that growing up in Detroit, such a musical city at that time? What was the experience with music just growing up? Was it just overwhelming? Was it just like normal to you? Like, what was the experience like?
It was interesting. The music, it wasn't, it wasn't segregated. And what I mean by that is you could listen to the radio and, your radio stations that would traditionally be classified as urban, like WJLB, that's the city's heritage station, pretty much like V103 is to Atlanta and WBLS is to New York City.
Right.
But on these airwaves, man, you could hear a wide variety of music, like just as quick as you would hear something from the Jacksons. You fuck around and hear Steve Miller Band, Fly Like an Eagle. You know what I mean? And just Steely Dan, all that kind of stuff, like on the same station.
Right.
And then, I had neighbors that were very musically inclined, so I was getting, Bob Marley and Black Uhuru, all that kind of stuff. And then, my Aunt Joyce was a big Natalie Cole, Cool in the Gang, you know, like I was just exposed to a whole lot of music, you know, and that just it reflects in, you know, the kind of things that I get into today, you know.
So going from a listener or a consumer, uh, when did you first find an interest in DJing? When did you first notice a DJ or take a liking to DJing?
Um, I would say my first exposure to a DJ was in junior high, you know, by a guy by the name of Michael Saunders. You know, he was a upperclassman at Henry Ford High School, but he used to come, you know, do our dances in the gym, you know, at our junior high. And you know, I just used to sit in the bleachers and I would just watch. You know, he had two 1200s, he had like 6, 7 crates of records, and I just used to pay attention to how he kept the music continuous,
Mm,
you know. And you know, I heard records in ways that I had never heard them before, you know. Like you know, Sweet Dreams Are Made of These, you know, by the Eurythmics was, you know, a hot record at the time, and he was Man at Rock. And I'm like,
mm,
what? Like, ooh, what? And you know, like that shit sounded, you know, it piqued my interest, you know.
right.
So, you know, the little allowance that I was getting, you know, at the time, you know, I also had a paper route.
Mm,
I was going to get records, you know, like basically I would write down everything that I saw Michael Saunders playing in front of my eyes in the gym, and then I would just go get those records. And you know, I didn't really have equipment of my own at that time. So what I would do, I had a big boom box with a very flexible pause button, and I just used to sit there, you know, sit in the basement after doing homework, and I would just, you know, try to emulate what I saw Michael doing, you know, with the pause button. And of course, you know, Run DMC, you know, all that came later. So, you know, you know, seeing Jam Master Jay, you know, in videos and things of that nature, that was kind of like, okay. But, you know, like at that time, I didn't really think that years later, this was going to be a career for me. You
Right.
know, like I was just into DJing just because, you know, like it looked cool, you know, plus I had a love for music, but
Hmm.
I didn't know how it was going to ultimately end up shaping my life.
Who are your main DJ influences outside of, going to school and seeing, that guy DJ? Who are your main DJ influences in Detroit growing up?
We gotta you know, kick it off with Mojo. You know, and Mojo wasn't even really like a DJ. He was more of a radio personality.
Hmm.
But you know, he captivated the entire city of Detroit by just playing literally like whatever he felt like playing. You know, like he would play Prince. He fuck around and play Kraftwerk. Then he played the B-52s and the Art of Noise. And you know, yeah. So we definitely got to give the electrifying Mojo uh, credit, you know, for shaping my ears a little bit. Then we got to, you know, also send a shout out to the Wizard. You know, again, this is someone that the entire city of Detroit knows. You know, he had that radio on lock, you
Hmm.
know, on both WJLB and on WDRQ, you know, at one time. But now he's known to the world as Jeff Mills. You know, he's produced
Gotcha.
a lot of classic house and techno, you know. So yeah, you know, we say the Wizard, Mojo, you know, then when you come down to Atlanta, you know, we say Nabs,
Hmm.
you know, Toomp, you know, just DJ Herb,
Hmm.
you know, the J team, you know, so we say DJ Smurf, you know, Edward J, Lady DJ, Kizzy Rock, DJ Man, DJ Lynn, you know, and of course, you know, the usual suspects, Jazzy Jeff, Cash Money, DJ Scratch, you know, DJs like that.
When did you move to Atlanta?
Uh, well, the first time I moved to Atlanta was near the end of '78, going into '79. You know, my parents had just got married. The marriage didn't necessarily work out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so I went back to Detroit, you know, while they were going through a custody battle and everything. So, but I've permanently been here since '85.
Okay.
So
So, what was it a culture shock coming from the D to the Atlanta in the '80s, or what was the transition like coming
yes,
from?
it was
Okay, talk about that.
definitely a culture shock because you know, my neighborhood, Detroit, was very black.
Yeah.
And then when I first moved to Atlanta, you know, I lived in Clarkston, you know, which is out
Mm,
there by Stone Mountain, and that was majority white.
mm-hmm.
You know, Stone Mountain was also KKK headquarters, so you
Right.
know, it was kind of a shock, you know, seeing people, you know, with Confederate flags, you know, on the, you know, in the truck windows and you know all that kind of stuff. That took some getting used to. But you know, as
Right.
a kid, you know, you adapt, you know, and that's you know that's what I did.
If you're just now joining us, we're here live with DJ Jaycee on No Request TV. This full interview will be available on our YouTube page. Just hit the link in our bio to subscribe. If you have any questions for JC while he's here, hit the comment section below. This is an interactive interview, so we definitely want you involved. But we're going to continue on once you got to Atlanta. What was the first party that you DJ'd? Was it in high school, post high school? What was the first party you remember giving?
The first party that I DJ'd at was actually it was in high school, and I wasn't even really like supposed to be DJing. Somebody else was DJing. It was a house party. You know, my man Mark Truitt. Uh, he kind of took a break, you know, because he wanted to holler at some chicks. You know, so I kind of you know stepped up, played you know some records out of his crate, and ended up DJing for the rest of the party. You know, it was like 2 hours. But my first real party, you know, that I did, you know, by myself that I can just really take credit for. You know, the AKAs down at UGA, you know, put me on. You know,
Mm,
they had a little party, a little shindig at the end of the year, spring '93, and you know they had me rock out. You know, I was totally responsible for 4 hours of captivating the campus or whatever, and you know, so yeah, you know, I say professionally, you know, my career began spring '93, even though I had done some shit before then.
when did you first enter the club scene back in Atlanta?
Also around that time, uh,
Okay.
92, 93, you know, just kind of, you know, being at the warehouse, you know, on
Okay.
Marietta Street. Back then it was called the Phoenix, you know, and at
Mm,
first, you know, I was a spectator, you know, because also at that time I was a part of a group, you know, before I really started pursuing DJing as a career, I was trying to make records. You
mm,
know, I was part of a you know local rap group, you know, called the Smooth Stylists,
mm,
and you know, we opened up shows around the city. You know, we opened up for Gangstar, Arrested Development, KRS-One, even a Tribe Called Quest when they were at Emory for their spring concert. And the group broke up. You know, my MC, you know, got his girl pregnant.
mm.
So, you know, at that point, shit got real for him. And, you know, he kissed his rap career goodbye. And, you know, I had all these records. Like, okay, what am I going to do with these records? So, since basically saying all that to say, since we had performed at a few spots around the city, I was kind of using that as my face card a little bit, you know. So when I would be at the Phoenix, you know, I was watching DJs like Lil Jon, you know, back
Hmm.
then, Lil Jon, DJ Dose, you know, rest in peace, DJ Dose. There was a cat from St. Louis named DJ Slice. Then there was DJ Wiz from College Park. You know, I was watching these guys DJ, and you know, I just started showing up to the club with with records, you know,
Right.
like, you know, and you know, clubs back then closed at 4 o'clock. So, you know, I would ask to get on. You know, sometimes they would make me wait till like 2:45, 3 o'clock, you know, but when they would put me on, I just kind of, you know, you know, made the most of that time, you
Right.
know, so I, you know, kind of developed a rep, you know, for spending the, you know, the last hour of the Phoenix. Also around that time, I was doing college radio. I was 88.5, also doing guest appearances on 89.3, sometimes even on Georgia Tech's radio station 91.1. So it was like my name was starting to catch a little bit. So now, you know, Phoenix closed down because of you know, if you're an Atlanta native, or if you've been here for a long time, you remember when the Fred Tokar's murder case was a big deal. And I mentioned that because uh, one of the suspects to the owners of the Phoenix, and they were laundering money. So when the feds got involved, they found the paper trail of money, and the Phoenix was a part of that. So they closed the Phoenix for a while. But then, like maybe about 4 or 5 months later, they reopened it as the warehouse. And at that point, you know, that was, you know, when I really, really started, you know, playing in a lot of different places. You know, it was the warehouse. There was Ethiopian Vibrations on Auburn Avenue. There was Velvet. You know, then, you know, again, after my parties at UGA, basically I started doing all the parties at UGA. And, you know, like I was just, you know, whatever I could do to get my name out, you know, that's what I was doing. And then one evening at Velvet, DJ Nabs, who was, you know, fresh off of a tour with Criss Cross, he just happened to be in Club Velvet while I was DJing. He invited me to do a guest appearance on this show called The Thunderstorm. And then that led to many appearances on V103, which then led to me being hired right before the Olympics. And then I just started DJing even more, you know, places like Flavor on Memorial Drive out there by the Atrium, you know, in the same plaza as the Atrium, you know, V103, when they would have their radio concerts, they would always be at the Atrium on Memorial Drive. You know, 9 times out of 10, I was DJing at all of them. Nabs had old school Sundays at Kaya, you know, so I was doing that. You know, I was starting to battle a little bit. You know, like again, any way that I could, you know, get my name out there, you know, and showcase, you know, because I was, you know, I was hungry, you know, so wherever I needed to be, you know, so that motherfuckers could get this work on turntables, I was there, you know. So
Going back to your early career, I'm going to go back to a question we had here earlier from famous Dexia. She said, do you think the move from Detroit to Atlanta contributed to kicking your career into a high gear? And you just kind of described everything that you were doing in Atlanta at that time. But I want to rephrase that question. And where do you think your career would be different if you stayed in Detroit as opposed to moving to Atlanta?
woo, life would be different. First, just being around my Aunt Joyce. My Aunt Joyce was about them books. So, you know, like she was definitely tolerant of me, you know, in my music, you know, when I was living with her, you know, but first and foremost, she would have made sure, you know, that I was a motherfucking bookworm. So, you know, if I would have hit them books, my career, you probably, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. So
Gotcha.
I'll just leave it at that.
So Atlanta was hugely influential into DJ Jaycee's career. We appreciate all the questions coming through.
Yes.
We got another question here from DJ Kerosene. It says, peace, Jay. You were on the DJing live stream wave very early, well before this quarantine. With the quarantine blowing up, the streaming trend, where do you see it headed in the future?
Live streaming. Yeah, yeah. I was going live way back when. Um, I mean, for now, until things return to some type of normalcy, going live is going to be, what what everybody's doing. I don't see I don't see this trend. I don't see it dying down until things go back to normal. But like I was going live when it wasn't cool. But niggas used to laugh at me, damn, that nigga JC going live again. Damn. Fuck.
Mm,
Let me let me mute my notifications so I don't know, so I don't see when this nigga goes, like when it wasn't cool, like I was still at it, but I just, I attribute it to just a love for it. Like
right.
if you really, really love this motherfucking craft, man, like you gonna, you want to get it in, period. You don't give a fuck who's watching, so sometimes I don't care if it's 2 or 3 motherfuckers watching me or 2 or 300. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna, if I feel like playing some shit and I feel like pressing live on my motherfucking phone, I'm gonna do it.
Definitely.
So
I mean, you see the love is real. You look at my background, and you look at Jay's background. You can't see any window,
oh yeah,
wall, or nothing. It's just all
you know,
vinyl.
and this is just a sample.
Yeah, exactly. That's just a little
you
little
know,
little piece right there. We
you know.
appreciate everybody having some questions come through. We're gonna try to stay in chronological order before we get to like goody mob questions and everything like that. But so you talk about all these clubs that you were working at, early '90s, mid '90s. Of course, coming, with working at clubs, DJing at clubs, you might have a love for music, but then you still got to deal with the business side of things. You still got to deal with janky promoters. You still got to deal with those types of deals. What are some stories you have as far as dealing with promoters that didn't necessarily see eye to eye with you, or even business wise, maybe some payment issues? What do you remember about that?
Well, there there's one particular incident. I don't brag about it. Like,
Mm,
but I had to, I had to put some hands on Atlanta's biggest promoter.
mm,
You know, there was a evening in 1995 when I was DJing at Velvet, and shout out to Talib Shabazz and my man Injex. We were the Thursday night regulars. At this point, and the biggest promoter in the city now. You know who he is. Like I'm not gonna.
might as well say his name.
Okay, all right. Showbiz and AG. AG Entertainment. Yeah, like,
Okay.
but so like before he turned into this mega club owner, that we all know him. Back then he was a serious hustler. His whole family. They ran all the parking lots and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he was promoting parties. So just one night, at the end of my set, he wasn't trying to pay me, and he was very public with his intent to not pay me, and I had a chick around me, so like you can't let a motherfucker go off on you in front of chicks, like what? So at that point the Detroit kicked in, and he got hands and feet put to him, and DJ Nabs had to pull me off and get me out of the club before the police came.
What was the
But
issue? I mean, I know he wasn't trying to pay you, but why wasn't he trying to pay you? Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
okay,
Because at that point I had been working with him at Velvet for about 3 months at that time, man. And payment was never an issue. So just this particular Thursday, he just decided, I'm not gonna pay you. And then I think what set it off was like he pushed me.
Mm.
I'm not paying you.
Right.
So yeah, that's not gonna fly. I'm calm, but one thing you're not gonna chump me about my money, and especially with chicks around.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not gonna happen. So, but also, I haven't heard, and he was notorious. He was notorious for not paying people, not paying DJs. Like I used to hear stories, man, Alex making me wait on my money. But you don't really hear those stories anymore. So,
Right.
Jaycee did that. So y'all didn't have to go through that.
Not Jay-Z. Jaycee did
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that you always have to. There's no crash course or book to prepare you for a lot of the bullshit that you got to deal with in the DJing game. You know, outside of the turntables, sometimes DJing is the easiest part. It's the business side of things. It's waiting on
Yeah,
money and all this other type of stuff. So, you learn it on the fly. And
on the
anytime
fly,
if
on the
somebody
fly.
disrespects you, you can sit there and say what I would have done, but you don't know what you're gonna do until it's happening to you.
Right.
And so you did what you had to do.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Um,
Mike Tyson say, everybody got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
exactly, exactly. Shout out to Tyson. Look like he might be trying to do a comeback here soon.
Right, right.
That'll be great to watch. But all right, so moving out of the club, of course, if you don't know who JC is, JC was the original tour DJ for Ludacris. Um, Talk about how you and Luda linked up, and what was it like working with an early Chris Luva Luva back in the day?
I first met him when he was an intern. He was fresh out of high school, uh, and he was a student at Georgia State. And Hot 97.5. Well, we know it as 107.9 now, but when it first
Hmm.
signed on, it was Hot 97.5. Shaka Zulu was the music director, and the station used to be on Old National Highway. Now, at this point, I used to live out in College Park. I literally lived about a mile and a half, from where Hot 97 was. And at this time, I was working at V103, right? But I was cool with Shaka, because I knew Shaka from the 89.3 days when he used to host this show called the Panther Power Hour. Like him and Tasha Love and some, I forget who else was on the show. But anyway, uh, even though stations were competing, people were genuinely cool with everybody. It wasn't no wasn't no beef, right? So just being cool with Shaka would be like, "Yo, I know you on V, but come by Hot. There's tons of vinyl up here. Whatever record labels aren't sending you shit, just come up here. Whatever you don't have, help yourself."
Mm.
So I used to stop at Hot and grab vinyl before going to V. So on one of my trips to Hot, I met Chris. Saying all that to set up how we met. He
Right.
basically, Shaka made the introduction. He was like, "Yeah, this is my guy Chris." This was before he was even hosting on radio, right? So he just kind of introduced himself to me as Chris, right? So just making an introduction, Chris was like, "Oh, I've heard you on 88.5, da 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 da," and he quoted a specific mix that I did.
Mm.
So this is how like when motherfuckers pay attention to you when they mention something very specific. And he mentioned this time he caught me cutting up some TV themes. And he was like, "Yeah, I remember when you was cutting up Green Acres, da 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 da." And I was like, "Okay, all right." So you was really paying attention.
Mm.
So fast forward, maybe like a year or so. Now he's Chris Luva Luva, you know. And I started hearing him rap, you know, doing these little promos on Hot 90. You know, he would do an intro for basically everybody on the station. So I started hearing him, you know, it was like, oh, okay, that's that nigga that Shaka introduced me to. Okay, all right. So then I started seeing him out because now I'm, you know, like I said, I was spinning in a lot of places, especially with Kaya at Nabs. And see, Nabs had left V103 to go over to Hot, right? So basically Old School Sundays was so popular, you know, that basically everybody from Hot was coming to Nab's party, and you know, V103 was right up the street from Kaya. So, you know, again, people from the stations kind of co-mingling, blah blah blah, right? So, you know, we just started seeing each other, whatever. Then I started DJing at this spot in Buckhead called the Chili Pepper, you know, with Mars and Cowboy and Trauma. Shout out to the Midnight Marauders. And, you know, the John Madden video game came out. What was it? Madden 2000. And he did the intro on that. And then I remember him coming up to me and he was like, yo, I got some music that I'm going to put out. Like at first he was saying he wanted me to scratch on some songs. But, you know, like at first I didn't really take him serious, but then, you know, when he put his music out and he had a single release party for What's Your Fantasy. This was before he was signed to Def Jam. He put the record out independently, you know, on the Orange label. And he had, you know, I DJ'd at a single release party. It was me, Mars, Trauma, Cowboy. And at this party, he was like, yo, I'm trying to get this deal. And, you know, whenever this real deal comes through, you know, I want you to go on the road with me, you know, do some shows. So What's Your Fantasy ended up taking off. And then in September of 2000, I did first show with him in Cleveland. At that point, I didn't know, you know, that he was gonna, you know, be the superstar. You know, like I didn't know. You know,
Right.
I honestly thought, you know, that this would be something that I would do for maybe like an album or two, and then come back to V103. You know, because I was doing V103. I was host by this time, I was DJing on Greg Street's show 3 nights a week, in addition to hosting my own show, hosting and DJing on my own show. So, as well as spinning out in places. So, you know, I figured, okay, all right, I'll do a little bit of traveling and then come back to V103. But that nigga took off way huger than I thought. And basically for the next 11 years, I was gone. Just always on a motherfucking flight going somewhere. Always on a tour bus going somewhere. Like that's just, you know. So yeah.
Going back to that time, you know, especially those early years, what was the process of putting a show set together? You know, you being the more, I guess, experienced, you know, man in the game. Was it a collaborative effort? Was it him saying, no, I want it like this, we're going to do this song first, so on and so forth? What was it like putting a show together with Ludacris back in those early years?
You know, Shaka was really the visionary.
Okay.
You know, it was basically me and Shaka. You know, like I remember, you know, being at Patchwork, and he would be like, yo, like, it would be cool if, you know, when he's performing, you know, maybe mix in a different beat or something. Right. So at first, you know, when Chris first started out, well, when I first started working with him, our sets were like 15 minutes tops. Right. Because, you know, What's Your Fantasy was his record, was the single at first. So, you know, we were basically doing, you know, like little track dates at nightclubs, you know, for like 15 minutes. You know, he would do the intro off his album, then he would do Catch Up, Ho. Like there were times where we weren't even doing Throw Them Bows at first, you know, because What's Your Fantasy was so hot. So basically, What's Your Fantasy, when we would perform it, I would switch up different beats at the beginning of the verse. Like at the beginning of his second verse, I would throw in Memphis Bleak, Is That Your Chick? And then like on the third verse, I would throw in Trick Daddy, Shut Up. And all this shit, you know, the way people started responding to it, it was like, okay, cool. So when Throw Them Bows started taking off, I started throwing in a down for my niggas, you know, at the beginning of that second verse. And you know, every time I would do that, crowds would just fucking go nuts. You know, so you know that saying all that to say Shaka was the guy, you know, that would he would basically give me an idea, and then, you know, it would be on me to figure out exactly what beat to throw in, when to throw it in, you know. So Shaka would give me the idea, and then I would take it and then execute it. You know, Chris wasn't, he never, at least not in the beginning, he didn't really give a fuck. As long as he could rap and he could see motherfuckers responding, he didn't give a fuck. So
We got a couple of questions from some viewers right now, particularly about video shoots. You know, this is the era of the big budget, you know, movie budget video shoots. You know, what was the MTV show, making the video type stuff.
okay.
New Face wants to know about the Pippin' All Over the World video, and then Ebony wants to know about the Pussy Poppin' video shoots.
Okay, well let's start in order.
Mm-hmm.
Pussy Poppin' was first, so you know, BET Uncut was the thing. You know, Nelly kind of had that shit on Smash, you know, with the tip drill, and you know, it was like, damn, you know, we let a St. Louis nigga come to Atlanta, you know, because all the chicks in the video was, you know, Strokers, Magic City, they was all Atlanta's finest. So it was like,
Shout out
okay,
to White Chocolate.
yeah, oh yeah, got to shout out White Chocolate and Sugar, and you know, yeah. So it was like, damn, you know, let a St. Louis nigga come to Atlanta, and okay, you know. So Shaka was like, all right, yeah, we gotta take it up a notch, and so you know, Magic City. That's all I
Yeah.
can say, man. You know, we was at Magic City all motherfucking day from like 10 in the morning till like 2 in the morning. 10 in the morning till 2 the next morning. Just
Right.
filming. You know, ass titties just everywhere, you know, and it was definitely enjoyable. And while I'm mentioning that, we also got to mention Chingy did an uncut version of Right There.
Yeah.
You know, that was also a experience too. We were in St. Louis, and yeah, yeah, Pussy Poppin', Right There. You know, those were staples. You know, in the uncut rotation. And then Pimpin' All Over the World. That was we filmed that in South Africa. We filmed that in Durban, South Africa. That was a motherfucking like
Right.
like when I tell you that what's the line in the record when he was like the best women are from Africa.
Right.
It's no motherfucking lie, bro. Like
Mm.
I've seen it. Like I've been to Australia, I've been to Brazil, I've been to England, I've been, you know, but nigga, there ain't nobody fucking with Mother Africa, bro. Like it's nothing like it. Nothing like it.
It's the motherland. Talking about your international travels, what was your favorite country to perform in with Luda?
I'm gonna say Africa, but then I can also say Australia. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like we went to 5 different spots in Australia, like Sydney, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Melbourne, and everywhere we went, man, it was like Ludacris mania around that motherfucker. You
Right.
know, and what's crazy is it was Ludacris mania, even though we were over there with Nas. You know,
Mm.
because Nas, he had a project with Damian Marley at that time. So on this tour, it was Nas and Damian Marley, Khalees,
Wow.
Erica Badu, um, De La Soul. They weren't on this particular tour, but they were over there at the same time that we were. Um, so just this camaraderie, you know, all of us just hanging out with each other. You know, I was hanging out with Erica Badu at that time, teaching her to DJ. You know, because she had a turntable set up in her room. You know, in
You
every
taught
city.
you taught Badu how to DJ?
I mean, I won't say that I taught her how,
Okay.
right? Because you know she's technically proficient on her own. You know, like she does a hell of a lot of drum programming. You know, she's heavily involved in production, so she knows her way around the equipment. So I'm not gonna say that I taught her how to DJ. I'm
Okay.
not gonna say that, but I will say that for two weeks I was showing her things, and after I would show her some things, she would do what I showed her. You know, like yeah. You know, there's more to it, but you know,
Right, right.
I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that.
If you're just not tuning in, we're live here with DJ Jaycee. We're just really having a conversation. People are saying that this might go on all day, but we're talking about his early career. We're talking about life on the road with Luda. Um, if you have any questions, I'm going to get back to some of the questions that we had earlier. Just hit the comments below. So speaking of Luda and everything, we got to talk about DTP and the roster on DTP. But I specifically want to talk about what was your relationship with Titty Boy, 2 Chainz at that time, while being with DTP?
Man, you know, Tit was interesting. You know, Tit was interesting, man. You know, when I first met him, at first, you know, he was kind of like off in the cut a lot. You know, it wasn't until it wasn't until DTP got the deal to come out with the Golden Grain album that I really started seeing him more. Matter of fact, there was a specific incident that led to him being around like all the time. Like we were in Philadelphia for All Star Weekend, and I remember he was up. He came to Philly and he was on crutches. He
Mm.
was on crutches because he had, I guess he was trapping or whatever, and you know the trapping went wrong. You know, so you know he came up to Philly, and you know like everywhere we were going, like it was just seeing this tall ass nigga, you know, getting around on crutches, and um, basically Chris was telling him to get out the street life,
Mhm.
basically. You know, it's like, oh, if you get out the street life, you know, like I'll help you, you know, the music, da 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 da. So DCP came out with it with the album Golden Grain, you know, and I would I was never in the studio with them while they were recording the songs, you know, but I would listen, you know, and I would be like, okay, it's something about this nigga that, you know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but I feel like I'm gonna have to pay close attention to him at some point. You know, I don't know when his breakout moment is gonna come. Like this is what I'm saying to myself. Summer of 2002, as you know, they're putting the album together, and when I would show up to the studio to add scratches to songs, you know, I would just listen and be like, okay, he kind of got away with, he kind of got a little flair to him, you know. the world couldn't really see it at that time, and I'm not even gonna front like, like I was the biggest fan, because I was kind of critical,
Hmm.
like, mm. But say moving along, 2007, uh, world we were in Vegas for All Star Weekend, and Luda did a party out there, and this is where Tit first performed the Duffel Bag song,
Yeah.
and it was at that point where it was just like, okay, all right, this he got it, it, like he had a confidence,
Hmm.
performing. I think this was also around the time, he had been hanging out with Wayne a lot around this time. So I think a lot of that energy that Wayne had, from his dedication mixtape series, and like at this point, Wayne was ruling shit. So
Hmm.
just being around Wayne, I think that rubbed off on Tit, and it turned him into somebody that you had to pay attention to, like, right. So when Duffel Bag Boy, like I saw him perform it, and then the rate when the song took off, it was just like, okay, all right, that he's gonna be out of here, So at first, like I said, I was kind of cool on him at first, but then over the years, he certainly grew on me as my favorite out of the crew. So
Definitely. I can honestly say I took a liking to Titty Boy way early. I remember, when Duffleback Boys came out, it was so different than anything else that was on the radio at that time. We're talking about like
yep,
Laffy Taffy time and kind of like the
yep,
end of the crunk era and everything. And this song, just when it came on, it just made such a presence. The dun 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 dun. And then the way the hook was, Wayne at the time, it was just a monster. And from that point on, I was listening to the tapes. So the tapes he was doing with Black Bill Gates and techniques and everything like that. So to see him on his ascent to the whole 2 Chainz deal has always been really, really great to watch.
yeah, yeah.
We want to go back to some questions here. We have a question from Cliff. He says, "Why do you think Luda doesn't get named in the top rapper conversations?"
Probably because of his imaging, his imaging, funny guy, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like his videos were funny, and you didn't really. Okay, now I'm gonna add my perspective to this.
For sure.
He doesn't get mentioned. The reason why I feel he doesn't get mentioned is because he hasn't really collabed. Well, I take that back. I take that back. He did a record with had a record with both Nas and Jay-Z on it, right? That I did scratches on, but nobody played it.
Right.
Like how do you have a record with Nas and Jay-Z and nobody plays the motherfucking record? Like, but um, I feel like he never, like I used to be like, yo man, you should do records with Black Thought. Get on a record with Most Def. Get on a record with blah blah blah. So you can go bar for bar with these niggas, right? Because it's easy to do records when you're doing a record with Gucci. It's easy for you to shine when you're doing a record with Gucci. It's easy for you to shine when you're doing a record with Juicy J and Paul. It's easy
Mm.
to shine. You know what I mean? Like get get on a record with some niggas, that's gonna give you a motherfucking run for your money, right? No, okay.
Mm.
I see New Face. He mentioned the Made You Look remix. That was hard. Yes, right. Hanging in there with Nas and Jada. You know,
Mm-hmm.
at that time, it was just like, yes, nigga, this you should be doing more of this. This is what the fuck you need to be doing right here.
Mm.
I don't know. I, he never the collabs that I wanted him to do, or that that I was pushing for, that I was in Shaka's ear, like, yo, dude, he should do a record with E40.
Mm.
He should do a record with blah blah blah. Do a record with Snoop. Now he did a record with Snoop, but it's not what the fuck you expect. Like, okay, a song called "Holes in My Room," like without hearing it, if somebody said, "Yo, Luda got this record with Snoop Dogg called Holes in My Room," you're gonna think, "Oh shit, I need to hear that," right? You're thinking, "Oh man, that's gonna be fire." But
Right.
what?
Mm.
Just the collabs that he was doing. I don't know. I don't know. I could go deeper. I could go deeper, but you know, he doesn't get mentioned because he hasn't. Yes, he's made hits. Yes, he's stolen the show on records with Missy and Usher and da 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 da. But like, he ain't really had like no record where he's just barring niggas down, right? Like,
Okay.
or if he is hitting you with bars, the music didn't necessarily match up, so it just kind of, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, yeah,
I,
I get emotional talking about this shit, man.
no, I got you. I mean, it's especially when you're in it and you're a part of it. You want to see certain things happen, and you're from the outside looking in. You got to hear other people talking about it, but the artist is going to do what they want to do. Management is also going to play their part too as well. Luda had a lane. I saw
Yeah,
Solomon say Luda had a lane, and he definitely rode it to the wheels fell off. You know what I'm saying? So, and still riding it. And there's really nothing wrong with that. So,
yeah.
transitioning out of Luda, what was when you moved on from Luda, what was the turning point as far as you leaving, being a tour DJ for Luda and working with Ludacris?
What led to me leaving? Me getting fired.
Oh, okay.
Social media. Basically some shit I said on Twitter, which I could have kept it to myself. Like, it's something that I definitely could have kept to myself. But when you on that brown, you got that brown in your system. You got the brown in your system, and you got two phones. It's just like, picked up the phone and
Right.
next thing I know, Julia Beverly, and shout out to Julia. Like,
Mm.
I love Julia. Like, I've been cool with her since 2001. But she retweeted. That got out there. Wasn't one of my finest moments. But you live, you learn. Not really tripping off of it now, but just at that time, it wasn't one of my best decisions, to get on social media and say some shit. So
I mean, since it's in the past, do you mind, because there's some viewers that might not know exactly what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about as
yeah.
far as, everything that happened. But just even because we have a lot of DJs that are here on the come up and they might be able to learn from this aside from just, not tweeting or anything like that. But just what led to that? What led to those tweets?
Um. Okay. Specifically, Luda Day weekend. So, you know, those of you who have been here for a long time, you know, Luda Day weekend is something that has been happening in the city since 2004, right? So here we are, 2011. Luda Day weekend has been functioning, you know, but his DJ hadn't spun at nothing. You know, like, dude, you know I can DJ. You know, like I was DJing when you met me, dog. Like I was rocking parties when you met me. I was doing radio when you met me. I'm still doing radio now. You know, like, hello, hey, you know, but nothing. And you know, like it just reached a breaking point with me, you know, and I said something about it. Shouldn't have said, and you know, most people will say, well, you know, you should have had a man-to-man conversation with him. And the crazy thing is, I was having man-to-man conversations with him, you know, because you know, we on planes every day going places. I'd be like, hey, man, you know, I don't have to be the main DJ. You know, I just want to DJ. You know, I don't give a fuck if I'm DJing at 9 o'clock when the motherfucking doors open, or I don't care, you know, if I get 30 minutes, you know, at like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I just want to fucking DJ. Right. You know, and it ain't even about the money, you know, because we were working, you know, so I wasn't, you know, I wasn't in his ear about motherfucking, you know, money to do it. But, you know, Luda Day weekend, it you know, when it started out, it was small, but then over the years, it grew. And as it was growing, you know, a lot of his fans, you know, from different parts of the world, everybody, you lived here, so you saw how people would descend on Atlanta when it was Luda Day weekend, right? So,
like a holiday, yeah.
Yeah, you know, so motherfuckers is calling me like, hey, man, why you ain't DJing? How come you ain't DJing here? You know, like, and you know, you know, niggas would do day parties, you know, a party in the daytime, then a party at night, then a after motherfucking party. You
Basketball
know,
games.
like, yo, yeah, how come you ain't on the set nowhere? Like, you know, and when it just gets frustrating hearing that shit from outsiders, you know, because, you know, the only way you can answer that shit is, I don't know, you know, so it just reached its breaking point, you know, and I hit social media like, you know, damn, you know, this nigga don't even let his own DJ rock during Luda Day weekend, you know, and then, so my bad on that, you know, not tripping off of it now, but at that time, you know, like I felt slighted, you know, like I felt like I was being slighted, and you know, like, yeah. So
let me ask you this: do you think that was an appropriate reaction by them? You give them 11 years of your life touring, leaving what you had going on in Atlanta, you know, to get fired over some tweets. And before you answer that, do you have time to stick around for a little bit longer? Because I got the countdown coming and they're going to have to kick us off. Do you have time to stick around?
Yeah. Let's go.
Okay,
Let's go.
So Jay's going to answer that question. We're going to log off. I'm going to go get my portable charger because my phone's about to die. And we're going to talk a little bit some more. So when we come back, we're going to answer that question as far as do you think that was an appropriate response by DTP to let JC go. This is No Request TV Live. We're going to log off and come right back here with Jay. So just come right back in, all right?
Word.